creating curiosity by asking better questions. This is Shed Talk. Bryan Grosul, West Creek Homes. The house that you knew that you didn't know. Or do you know? Bryan Grosul, thank you very much for joining me on Shed Talk. And this is going to be a really unique episode due to the fact is with West Creek Homes and being a home builder.
Yes.
Thanks for coming on board.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Not a problem. And I have to ask you because I always ask the first question is this is your first podcast?
It is. Yes.
And how nerve-wracking is your first podcast?
I'm a little nervous. I'll
Really?
be quite honest. Yeah.
Oh, good. Well, the thing about it is actually it doesn't make it really nervous because we're actually going to deep dive and basically in about the home building industry. Because how long have you been in the home building industry for?
This is my 26th year in the industry.
And how has that been?
I haven't been bored in 26 years.
Really,
It's been fantastic. I love it. Yeah, I wouldn't change it for anything.
And you've been in Calgary, building houses in Calgary for 26 years?
Yes. Yes. So I started on a framing crew and kind of worked my way up from there. Went into site supervision, estimating, purchasing, management, and long story short, one day decided I wanted to do my own thing. So I purchased a lot and I thought that was cool. I want to do more of that. And now we're in 3 communities building 50, 60 homes a year.
Okay, now I'm going to really deep dive this because it's interesting because you just mentioned and said, well, I'm just going to buy and I was doing this and that. And, I'm just going to start my own company up.
Yeah.
Okay, tell me a little bit about that, how that transition happened.
So I'm going to get myself in a little bit of trouble, but I worked for my dad for 15 years and I decided one day I don't want to work for my dad anymore. So I quit a good paying job and I thought, what am I going to do? And I actually, I got to give a shout out to P.S. Sadu at Genesis because he gave me my first lot. He let me buy a lot just independently. And then we built our first single family home. And then they had some more lots. So we picked up 60 duplex lots and then built that project. And then the deal was if it went well, we would start West Creek Homes. So obviously it went well. Here we are.
Interesting. So I'm going to go even back, even more
Sure.
and dig down.
Yes.
Because family.
Yep.
When you look at family, and we've had a few people on about family businesses, entrepreneurs, and they're growing up, and I have a family that's actually in the railing industry,
Yep.
what I do as well, and the conflicts between the two is in family.
Sure.
And starting up your own, how with young entrepreneurs starting up in a family business, how difficult was that?
It's tough because, at the end of the day, you can leave things at the office. When you're working with your family, especially family you live with, you can't. So there's a lot of shop talk all the time. It has benefits and it has, cons as well. You get a lot done in the evening hours, but at the same time, sometimes you just want to shut off and you can't. So it has, benefits and like I said, cons as well.
So when you were starting off and building, getting ready to do that first lot, first time, and your dad, and you're working for your dad.
Yeah.
How was that transition? Like, was it admirable? Like, did it work out, or was it a big?
Let's say it was amicable when I had left. So everything was okay, and then let's just say for a handful of years it wasn't. And now it is. So we'll go with that. But it was nerve-wracking. I mean, quitting a job where you're, a general manager and then starting all over, back then I was in my early 30s. So I was nerve-wracking. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew it was the right thing to do.
How did you get cash? Like starting off, because I know speaking from experience, all of a sudden you're going to start up your own business.
Yeah.
Zero to hero. What does zero mean?
Well, I got to thank my in-laws. They stepped up and they joined the venture at the time and they helped us and we looked at our finances and scraped everything we could into that first house and it led us to the next 60 and then beyond that.
So buying the first lot.
Yeah.
And I look at young entrepreneurs and I look at Calgary today so you go back 30 years ago,
Yep.
You're saying. So you go back 30 years ago and entrepreneurs that want to start up their own businesses today and buy a lot and do it. They go, oh man, it's a big task. I got to do this. I got to do that. And I don't know what my dream is. But starting that first lot, buying it, how did you find it?
We had been building in the community with Genesis, and I got to know PS quite well. And I just reached out, and I think we had lunch. It was a long time ago. I think we had lunch, and I just told him what I was looking for, and I thank him to this day. He gave me a chance, and he sold me that lot, and I built my first house, and went from there. So.
Do you remember the cost of your first house building? As because we look at inflation today from that first house.
I don't remember the exact cost, but I'm gonna guess it's at least 100,000 less than what it would be today.
Because I go back and I remember my first house that I purchased was in Mackenzietown.
Yep.
First house, I think it was the ninth house in Mackenzietown. And I paid for Mackenzietown, and it was a heartland back in the day, was actually $129,000 was for the house itself. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's a lot of money. And now fast forward to today, and you just go, wow, that house is $700,000. I'm assuming. I don't know the values of houses better than where you would come into play. So that comes out.
I think that house was, I want to say it was 2,500 square feet, south facing on green space. I think we sold it for like mid fives. And now you're lucky to get a duplex for that.
Wow.
So,
Did it sell fairly quick?
No, it took a while. We sold it over the summer months. So, traditional market conditions in Calgary are, stampede to Labor Day weekend's pretty quiet. So we staged it, and we sat in it as a family and tried to sell it on the weekends, and eventually listed it and sold it. But it's a happy family. It was good.
And then you do one.
Yep.
Sell one.
Yep.
Did it now go to two, or did you have 2, 3, 4 already in the process?
That's kind of a funny story. So this was a single family home, and just down the block there was another a strip of houses that Genesis was selling, and I put together a bit of a business plan, and I thought I'm going to see if I can find a partner to do 10 more, and that was a big deal. 10 going from 1 to 10 was huge, and my business partner now, Bryan Grosul, I pitched it to him, and he said, well, yeah, okay, 10 houses, it's okay, but what's this project over here? And I said, well, those are all duplex. There's 120 duplex lots. And he goes, well, let's just do half of those. And my eyes were, whoa, this is getting real now. So I, put that plan together, and then we did that project. And again, if this project goes well, we will start a home building company under West Creek, who was a established developer at the time. And, we're 11 years into West Creek Homes.
Wow. So what's the difference between a standard developer and a builder? What's the two difference there? Because you mentioned that.
So a land developer like West Creek Developments, they strictly do land development. So they will buy like raw farmland, and they will have a vision of a community, and they'll put a area structure plan together, and then they'll get it approved with the city, and then create communities like Legacy, Wolf Willow, Corner Brook, stuff like that. Home builders typically buy the lots from the builders or from the developer, and then build houses on those lots.
So does it take a long process? So when they talk about cash, like a developer, are they usually hanging on to their cash a lot longer than obviously a builder?
100%. I mean, in the community of Legacy, I believe that was purchased over 20 years ago. And now it's, I could be wrong with this, about 80% complete. So you think about that timeline and that investment and that, patience. Home builders, we have the luxury of selling a house and turning it over within a year. So
guys that have the land developed obviously have to have big pockets or big, I guess, hedge funds. Is that what a land developer would be like?
I would say, from their investors, patience and understanding would probably be number one, to put your money in like that and know that it's going to be upwards of a couple decades before it comes back.
So one of the things is growing up in Calgary and being in, so you have your land developers, you have your builders, and then you have your subcontractors.
Right.
And you look at it, and each city is fragmented a little bit differently.
Right.
Okay, so I'm going to use Calgary as an example. Calgary has fairly large builders.
Right.
So in terms of large builders, you would have large suppliers. So your suppliers become a lot larger versus in Edmonton, you're fragmented, where you would have a lot of smaller builders buying little pieces of lots here and there,
Right.
meaning your trade pool now is smaller little individual companies.
Right.
Do you see that as a big hindrance, or is it a positive or a negative? Like, which one's better?
I think being a bigger builder with a bigger trade base is beneficial, and where that comes into play, like larger companies like Jamin and Shane and Trico, they can establish a bigger trade base because they can promise the volume. They can say, listen, we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 400, 500 homes this year, and commit to the trades to do that, whether it's spec product or pre-sales or how many communities are in. So smaller guys might have a little bit of a tougher time getting those same pricing based on higher volumes and commitments from trades, because a lot of the bigger builders, they demand the commitment, and rightfully so, they should, if you put up that kind of a volume. We find ourselves a little bit in between. We have fantastic trade partners that work with us. They know where we're going. They know our volume, and a lot of deep relationships, you included. Yeah. So, I do think it's good for the trade base as well, and the labor, is to have a lot of available work to keep everybody moving.
And it's interesting because they talk a lot about labor shortage in Calgary and, well, all over North America. I'm only going to speak into the area of Alberta, Canada. Yeah. They talk about a labor crisis, a labor shortage, where, on my experience, I look at it, it's not a labor shortage, it's a management shortage. Right. Meaning understanding how to manage your people, to manage the projects, to making sure that you're efficient in doing it. Right. And it was interesting when we go back 15, 20, 30 years ago, the same time 30 years ago, we're back into the peaks and valleys of exactly where we had a labor problem then. Yep. Okay, here we are today having a labor problem. Yep. Before, it used to be the Philippine community coming into play. Mm-hmm. Now it's the Ukrainians, because of the war, coming into play. So there's a transition there. But one of the things about Calgary, what was interesting when you started that, and using Genesis as one of that, is that I remember when starting off, like a builder would start off, it would be really tough to buy in an area because the developer would only sell to Shane, Jamin, Avi, like these people, and say, okay, you guys are locked in. Do not sell to independents to have them start up. Yeah. Did you feel or face that back then at all?
Well, things have definitely changed in land development in that regard. I mean, I agree with you. We were in communities in the 90s where, and it was different. It would have, 4 show home builders, for example, and then move our product. And the commitment was buy, put up a couple show homes and buy 3 lots. And that's crazy now. And now the developers are, if you want in, we need you to take 20 a year, and put that commitment down. But the long game to that is that you're in an established show home row in an active community, and if you can keep moving phase to phase, in the long run, it's much more beneficial instead of having just, like you said, one-off lots or builders coming and going. So it's quite a bit different now. In addition to that, a lot of builders are now developers and vice versa. So they're taking care of their own land, their own products. So, and we're kind of getting into that a little bit as well. Buying land and putting up our own product and stuff like that. So.
Would you sell your own product at the same time?
Absolutely.
Okay, because it's really interesting because there's a lot of politics. So when we get into the construction industry, and I get to see it, so I get to see the politics behind it and how land development versus the builder. And over the last, like I said, 50 years, 30, say 30 years, when you look at that and how the politics around that has played out, Edmonton's different. Just because you can buy a lot anywhere, and it's like it's a free for all. Yeah. But here it's very structured, and it's like, okay, if you're going to buy that land, to buy the land, you got to buy the houses and put your builders in there. Yeah. They have to be reputable.
Sure.
And with everything that's happening with the government now, with the taxation and stuff, how is that affecting building now with the new law? With the new financing that's coming into play. That we can build anywhere. Zoning. I'm going to call it zoning. The zoning. Sorry, I have to clarify because I'm getting off track, and it's like, okay, how it was. Now it's the zoning's opened up for, before it used to be urban sprawl. No, we got to bring it in, and now it's like, okay, we're back to where it was before.
The zoning changes are very beneficial, very helpful. I mean, housing affordability, people can barely afford to rent, let alone own. So having the ability to be able to put in legal suites across the city, having the rezoning of, just RG, which is basically wide open, it's very beneficial. It's very easy for us because now we can go to the city with different plans, different ideas, and it's a little bit easier to get through the process. There's no question that's going to help the city.
Are you looking at building more internally in like inner city, buying lots in city or tear downs?
Not yet.
Not yet.
We're not into the infill, sorry, product, but we are mostly, outskirts. We're in Legacy, Wolf Willow, we were in Corner Brook, a couple other areas, but we are mostly in that move up, show home row, kind of like empty phases, empty lots. But we always have our ears open. We're always looking for opportunities. Just recently we were looking at some lots down in Riverbend that have been sitting for quite a while. Beautiful lots on the Bow River. So we're always looking. We're always open to opportunities.
So let's throw that a little bit again. Sure. What is I'm looking or we're looking for opportunity? How do you find opportunities?
Good question. I mean, being part of, let's call it friends with a developer, they know a lot of people. I know a lot of people. Just having meetings like this, going for lunches, going for coffee, industry events, just talking, listening, and who knows what'll come up as an opportunity. So the one thing I like with West Creek Homes is we feel that we can pivot quite quickly. We aren't a giant moving machine. So, if we bought 12, 15 lots somewhere, we can move pretty quick on it. We don't have to do a big analysis that takes a year to pull the trigger.
So basically from saying, okay, I'm ready to go, you can be probably digging, well, I guess your permits probably take forever or no?
It depends. If the lot's service, we can be digging in 60 days. If it's a development permit, 6 months. So
it all goes over there.
Yeah.
Interesting. That really opens a lot of things up. In the Calgary market, what do you see happening with the Calgary in building and with the labor shortage, or is there a labor shortage? Like, what's your opinion on that part? Or have you seen it?
There's a labor pinch. There's no question. I mean, like skilled trades out there are tough, and we definitely like to hold on to the skilled ones that have been working with us for a very long time. I think that one of the larger problems is who's the next wave of trades coming in. I mean, we got a lot of the baby boomers and Gen Xers pushing retirement, and these are the guys that are going to train the new wave coming in, whether it be Gen Z or whoever. But I think that talking to a lot of the peers in the industry, when you look at, talk about kids coming out of high school or university, what's the draw? We talk about like heating contractors are in such short supply, and it's a tough job. It can be very rewarding and beneficial, but it's very tough to do that work. And I think a lot of the kids coming out look at it and go, well, why would I want to work in a freezing basement for 6 months of the year, despite the good money? So what is the draw? How are we going to get them to see that there's a good career in the trade industry? I think that's the toughest thing right now.
That's interesting because you bring up obviously working in the basement to do that, and I think, I thought it would be cribbing would be the most difficult thing there, and lifting, but again, it's not an AI issue; it's a labor issue.
Right.
So, with that being said, and then going, has labor been one of your greatest challenges, or does it? Yes, it's there, but I got more issues with land development than I would have on a labor component side.
I almost want to say right now, things are pretty good. Honestly, like land availability is good. Sales are good. The market's strong. Trades are, we always benchmark 2 years ago when it was just upside down. It was just too much, too fast. So it's better than it was. It's still difficult, but we work with our trades on timelines. If our trade vendor is going to be a week out, okay, we'll make adjustments. We understand. It's not like it was where you would just say, be here on this day or else. It's a little bit more communication, more understanding, and working together, and it should be that way. So that's what I see right now. So it's pretty good. It's pretty good. I don't know that there's a labor shortage, but there's a pinch. For
Yeah.
sure.
Well, we recognize, I remember back, and you go back 30 years ago when a house was being built, and I remember some builders back in the day, and you can actually name the areas because fast track, your past dictates your future. Go back 30 years, and what's happening today with houses that need repairs, mold, whatever. And I remember building houses, well, not building, but going into a house, putting a railing system in, and the basement hadn't even been poured yet. And it was a bungalow. So the finishing's done, painting's done, and because the concrete wasn't finished, they would pour it after the fact.
Right.
And you go, and this was standard practice. And you're thinking, oh my gosh, look what happened. Bang. Here we are, mold, this was happening. Shingles, the wood shingles, like I think it was Douglasdale back in the day.
Right.
Had all that, they had new
Yeah.
product, and then it became something totally different. And but now in the building industry, it is night and day. Like it is safe. Never mind safety. Everything that you guys are putting together is really high end, a way better product than you'd look at somewhere else without basement developments.
Absolutely. Hands down, the building products, the building science, like you said, even versus 20 years ago, it's night and day. The way we build houses now are fantastic. They're strong, they're tight, they're just night and day difference between what we used to build. And that's just, a lot of the learning that people have done to understand how things need to change. We run into problems where with the energy code and moisture and stuff like that, we build them so airtight. But now that's created other problems. So we have to address that with, ventilation and contaminants in the air, microfiltration, all this sort of stuff. So, but at the end of the day, we're building houses better than ever, no question.
So would you say what would be one of your superpowers over the last 30 years that you've learned in the building construction that you were like, wow, yeah, that's my superpower?
Well, there's so many things I could touch on with that, but the way I've always looked at a house is how is a family going to live in this? I've always focused around that. Right when you walk in the door with the kids, where are they putting the backpacks? Where are the groceries going down? Where is the laundry being done? And maybe that's just because we raised a bunch of kids in our house and we always had those same thoughts. But the way we design our homes is we try to focus on every little square inch. No wasted space. How is this house going to interact with the family? And we get those comments back all the time. People tell us, we can tell you guys, focus on family. I would have to say that. The other thing that we're recently really honing in on is health. We're really looking at the health of the home, and I mean microfiltration, radon mitigation, things like that. We feel like that's probably just paramount right now with the way families are living in their homes.
So interesting. So people like COVID happening and how wearing masks and where that is. Can you explain a little bit more about that? Because I hadn't heard that before.
Well, there's a real push for smart home technology in the houses right now, which I understand. Everybody likes to have the app on their phone that does everything, and we do a lot of that as well. We really kind of had some alarming reports come back from some of our homeowners just saying like, hey, did you know that there's high levels of radon in this area? No, we didn't know that.
What would cause that?
It's just radiation gas in the ground. And I mean, honestly, it can come up 50 years later or 2 years later. You just never know. So the code was introduced where you have to rough in a way to mitigate that somehow. And so really what it is, just a standpipe in your mechanical room that says, if that's present one day, you need to be able to mitigate with a fan. So we decided to just make that a standard. So we put the fan in, we make sure that our customers are 100% able to mitigate that gas should it show up. In addition to that, we started working with a company out of Edmonton, and we started doing high velocity furnaces, which really just helps with better air quality, better air distribution, so you don't really get cold spots. It's just even air temperature. And in addition to that, we went with microfiltration as well. And some of the, when you really see some of the reports of the contaminants that are in the air in your house, not just the off gas from that new house smell, but just stuff you can't see. You can see the dust floating in the sunbeam, but you don't see the stuff that's actually harmful. And so having microfiltration, we really think the health are going to be our focus.
And that's interesting because you talk about health being the focus. We assume that it's correct, but until somebody tells you, you don't know you're in jail until you break out.
Right.
So you don't know that this is. And then speaking from experience here we are today, and we're doing this podcast, and the air is full of the smoke from Jasper. And well, hopefully everything's good with Jasper. We know where they're at on there and the buildings aspect of it. But when you start talking about infiltration of furnaces and going into your house where the older population is getting older and stuff, and how important that is. And a lot of people don't realize that the airflow in your house to do that. And that's that focus that you guys are taking to heart.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a perfect example of where having that smoke contaminant in the air, having that kind of mechanical system and air filtration, it's not going to solve it, but it's going to help dramatically.
So what made you go in that direction?
I got Canyon Plumbing. My friends at Canyon Plumbing took me on a little bit of a tour up to Edmonton and said, you got to check out what this guy's doing up here, this high velocity stuff. And so I went once, and I was impressed. I was a little bit blown away. And we did it again a few months later, and I finally just said, I'm in. We went 100% high V standard February 1st of this year. And we just think it's innovative, it's ahead of the curve, and we think our customers are really going to enjoy that air quality. And then on top of that, we introduced the microfiltration as of August 1st. We're going to have microfiltration in the air as well. And these filtrations are, it's not just the UV bulb that's in the furnace. It's these units are being sold in China, in hospitals and stuff. So it's like hospital grade air filtration.
And it's interesting that you talk because this was a big conversation during COVID. And I remember during COVID for the bars and restaurant, the hospitality industry is like, how do we, with my other company, Plexi Canada, we had Plexi. Well, how do we do the infiltration in the air quality? And that was the biggest conversation. How do we get the lighting in there? And I didn't have a clue. Here we are, fast forward to here we are years. And it's like, that's a part of the house now.
Yeah.
That you never thought it would. And then all of a sudden, clean air.
Correct.
And clean rooms.
Absolutely.
And recycling. Yeah. That is absolutely amazing. So, Bryan, with building the future and everything that's going to be happening, how do you see Calgary as a whole in the future? Obviously, you're going to say it's great, everything's good. Okay. How do you feel about like everything else about that? But you can't say, oh, it's great. I kind of need more of a dig into that.
It's awesome.
It's awesome. There you go. I'm kind of giving you a loaded question. Say, no, you can't just say it's great. Yes, we see this. How do you see it going to be great? We've got the land development. We've got hospitality. We got these new things being built. How does that help with the housing industry and your areas?
I'm excited. Talking to a lot of industry peers, everyone's really excited for the future of Calgary. There's no question in the home building industry, we're going to go through ebbs and flows. It's going to slow down. It's going to be scary again at some point in time, whether it's 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 years, we don't know. But the future of the city, look at all the head offices that are coming here. They shoot movies here. The new arena, it's exciting times.
And we look back, remember, now go back, remember, and I go back to say, yeah, here it is. We've got the new arena. We've got this. And isn't it interesting? Our peaks and valley, we repeat our past dictates our future. Here we are, we get in here. The Olympics are coming. We're going to be building this. And then all of a sudden we get the other, and then all of a sudden, oh, this is happening. And it's amazing that we can actually predict the future by seeing our past.
True.
And we've got all that coming together and making this wonderful.
Yeah.
You know what, Bryan? Thank you very much for being on Shed Talk. Is there any last things you want to discuss or talk about before we get going in here?
I don't think so. I really appreciate you having me. It was a lot of fun.
That was great. Thank you very much. Yeah. And looking forward to everything in the future and go from there. Thanks, Bryan.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now you know.
Shed Talk.